We are talking about, and perhaps tonight we will finish, after. And what the last thing we were up to really talking about was how special it is, our service of God, and how special it is after by the souls and their connection to God, and how all that compares to the angels, right? Here we think of angels, celestial beings, they're so spiritual and holy and godly, and they are, and they are, and they are. But none of that can compare to us. None of that can compare to a soul above. The souls are far higher than the angels. We view the angels almost like, anyway, use the term robots, computers, programmed, tremendously full of love and fear of God, but that's their program. That's what they are. We, the human beings, and then afterlife, the souls of these human beings, we sweat, we choose, we create, we give to God, we help God, we give God pleasure. He has nachas from what we're doing. We release and elevate spiritual energies. So even though we don't look and probably are not so spiritual, actually, I can guarantee you we're not so spiritual. It says that now, like in contrast to human beings, to Jews, in the times of the temple, we're sleepwalkers, sleep talkers. Our eyes are closed, our minds are shut down, our hearts are shut down, which means we're barely understanding, we're barely feeling, we're barely loving, barely fearing. We're so minimally hanging on, and yet what we're doing, because of all the darkness, because of the concealment, because so many things are shutting us down, whatever we're doing is so powerful and, bottom line, creating Mashiach. So this is really highlights what I've been trying to explain about Gan Eden. In other words, just like the angels are so spiritual and so holy, but that's not what God's interested in. That doesn't give pleasure. That doesn't give nachas to God. They can't give to God. They can't create for God, though they're very spiritual. So in essence, that's almost like the whole Gan Eden concept, right? Gan Eden is a beautiful waiting room. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's spiritual. It's holy, but it's a waiting room. The souls in Gan Eden can't give to God either. The only ones that can give to God are us here in this world. So when we here in this world give, we're giving to God. And if we have parents above, we're giving to our parents. And if we're intending, we're giving to any other soul that's right now in Gan Eden, right now has passed. I don't know if any of you had any of these thoughts in mind when you said Yizkor, when you said the memorial prayer, if you said the memorial prayer on Pesach. But it was definitely significant thinking about it and understanding that when we're saying this prayer, we're really giving consciously to souls that can only receive. They can no longer produce. They can no longer help themselves. Only what we give to them. Which I know for myself, since we started this course and since we've been doing this for so many weeks, I, as part of my daily Tehillim routine, when I'm focused and say everything, I say my father's chapter, I say my father-in-law's chapter, and sometimes, to be honest, if I don't have that much time, if it's getting close to Shkia, to dark, if I'm, racing for time, I would skip my father's. I would skip my father-in-law's. I mean, they don't need it as much as people in this world do, right? I mean, they're souls. They're in good shape. But since I started, I've been more careful because I think of it a little differently. Meaning, since I started this series of classes, because I really feel like, yeah, I mean, they don't have the stresses we have, but at the same time, they're completely dependent on us for any growth, for any gain, for ascending, for getting closer. What I send them, that daily chapter of Tehillim, is so important to them. It's like their food. I envision it like this: is I'm giving them their food. I'm giving them what's sustaining them. I'm giving them what's propelling them higher. So I've renewed my commitment to try to say it, even if I am somewhat pressed for time. Also, obviously, bottom line, this just connects to creating Mashiach and to understanding the significance of Mashiach. Because the more we understand the souls above, and we've spent so long on it, and I hope we understand it very well now, and it's very fleshed out in us, We get that, as I said, it's a waiting room. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's spiritual. It's holy. You're getting closer and closer to God. You're ascending 3 times a day, plus on your birthday, plus the Shalosh Regalim when people say Yisker for you, plus, of course, the most significant day on your yard site. At the end of the day, it's still a waiting room. And the waiting room is waiting for Mashiach. That's the waiting room.
Jordan, you just made me feel so much better because I have a list of Tehillim that I say every day, and I try to get to it every day, but some days I just can't get to it at all, and some days I get to only half of it or whatever. And then for you to say that the same thing happens with you is like, okay, it made me feel like, okay, it's okay. I feel bad, but like sometimes just get busy or like there's other things to do, and I don't know. So you made me feel very good. Thank you.
Good.
Hashem sent me that. Like
Good.
I need to hear that,
Good.
so Hashem sent it
Okay.
my
I'll
way.
take it exactly like that. I'll take it exactly like that. I'm so glad. And but my point was I do try harder now for my father and father because those would be the first ones I would skip. If I'm
Yeah,
skipping from my list, it would be because I mean they're okay, right? You know, they're souls,
right.
they're okay. They're not going through all the stresses my children are going through. My children really need the help. But then now I'm like, they're okay, but they're so dependent on me. So I push harder. So I'm really glad that I did something good. And there was a reason you're in the class, and there's a reason I said what I said, and God was sending you a
Yeah,
message through me. And I'm so glad I was his
yes,
vehicle for you to
absolutely.
hear you're okay.
Okay.
So
Thank God.
anyone, I don't know, besides myself, if anyone has gained this awareness from these classes or has a situation where they're saying Tehillim for people that have already departed and have
Me, I
recommitted.
started saying for my father after
Oh,
you said for your father.
good.
So yeah,
Good.
yeah,
So we're looking, and yeah, the souls are in a good place. And we do say Tehillim and give charity and do mitzvahs. And of course, we've learned that anything a child does always helps their parents, no matter what their parents' relationship to God was, no matter what their parents' relationship to them was, no matter how healthy or unhealthy the parent was. It's irrelevant. They're your parent, you're their child, and everything you do your whole life will help your parents after they have passed away. But what my point really is understanding that, but they're still waiting. They're really all still waiting above for Mashiach. And as I was saying, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says that if we don't have enough personal motivation to bring Mashiach, meaning if we don't have enough stresses and strains in this world, which I think we probably do. And if we don't, we could think of Eretz Yisrael and the Jewish people, and that should definitely be high motivation. But if for some reason we still don't have enough motivation, the Rebbe says, think of everyone above waiting. Think of all the souls above. They're just waiting. The Rebbe says, think of God. He's waiting. Think of Melech HaMashiach himself. Mashiach is waiting. So God's waiting. Mashiach is waiting. And every single soul that has passed is waiting for us to bring Mashiach. Because when Mashiach comes, every soul, and actually every lifetime of every soul, will come back, which of course applies for us as well. That if this is my, I have no clue, 20th time in this world, I'm alive. Mashiach is happening now. I'm part of the living. But all those 19 previous lifetimes, they'll all come back. So they're also all waiting. They're all waiting. They're in Gan Eden. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's spiritual. It's holy. And it's a waiting room. A beautiful, fantabulous waiting room. They're waiting up there to come back here.
So you could so so strange. So you could see who you share a soul with?
Will we have the relationship that we'll like have joint gatherings of all our previous lifetimes? I don't know. Will we bump into each other in the streets of Jerusalem and recognize?
Right.
Oh my gosh, you look so like me. You must be my soul. I don't know. But what I do know is every soul in every lifetime of every soul comes back. That is absolute.
Wow.
I assume that's what I know. What I know and what I assume is not always the same thing. That I know. What I assume is probably we will have some connection because when Mashiach comes, we'll know all of our past lifetimes, right? Our minds will be open, we'll be aware. So therefore, there will probably be some level of connection because those are all like stages of me. Every previous lifetime was a stage in what became me. Like almost like if I look now at me when I was 5 or me when I was 15 or me when I was 25, right? Lifetimes ago. Well, actually it's all part of the same lifetime, but it could feel like lifetimes ago. It feels like almost a different person, but it wasn't. It was me. So, in a sense, with Mashiach, every other lifetime of mine, everyone will all have Tchias HaMesim. And I think it's very possible because we'll know that we will have some connections. But I guess that's one of the things we'll find out. It's motivation. I mean, I don't know if that's motivation. I don't know if that motivates you to want to bring Mashiach. Would that motivate you to bring Mashiach? What motivates you to bring Mashiach?
All the Tsoros in the world, all the Tsoros in Israel right now, all the anti-Semitism that we're facing, that's rampant.
Right.
That's why we eat them.
That's right. That's what I was saying, thinking before. I was saying that for us, at this point in where the world is holding, we don't need to think
Yeah.
about the souls above. We got a lot going on in this world that would be motivation to bring Mashiach. So you're saying your biggest motivation is thinking of October 7th and Israel and security and the fear and the pain and the hostages and the anti-Semitism. And
Yeah,
do I want to leave this world for my children like this?
yeah. It's scary. I mean, there's like overtones of, Nazi Germany creeping in. There's, people saying that the Arabs are infiltrating America. I don't know. It's just
Right.
scary.
Right.
It's time for Mashiach to come,
If
Daini.
I
It's like
didn't
enough.
believe in God and I didn't believe in Mashiach, yes, it would be a terrifying, terrifying, terrifying world. And for people that don't think they believe in God, because obviously every Jew is a believer, and actually every non-Jew is also a believer. Every human being is a natural believer in God, and every Jew much, much more so. But for all those people out there that don't know they're believers in God, I have such compassion for them. I don't know how they function. I don't know how they sleep at night. I don't know how they deal with themselves
Mhm.
because
Yep.
I hear you. I definitely understand what you're saying. But we are believers, and therefore we are confident, and we know Mashiach's coming, and we know God runs his world. Anyone else? So Yael said looking at the state of the world, that would be her biggest motivation, or is her biggest motivation. Dina, Miriam, you ever thought about that? Like what would be your what is your motivation to bring Mashiach?
I mean, right now, I agree with Yael. Yeah, right now. At the state we're in right now, yes. More than ever. Yeah.
Are you thinking more of Israel? Or you're thinking more of like the anti-Semitism in the world?
Both.
They're connected.
Yeah, hand in hand, goes hand in hand.
And Dina, you're saying the Beis Hamikdash, so I guess you're still in a space where you can't talk, but you can write. So you mean your vision and your motivation for Mashiach is that level of revelation of God? That's what you want, and that's what Mashiach
Yeah.
is?
Like I'm excited for the whole world to know and see like what the true God is and like what godliness feels like and like the elevation of our lives, like and everyone seeing that.
Yeah, that's that. It's very interesting, I think, because, like probably, I mean, maybe we could argue it, but definitely maybe the top 4 verses of all of Torah is Shema Yisrael Eloheinu Echad. And what are we saying there? So if you look at Rashi, the most basic commentator, most basic meaning of the words, Hear, O Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, now God is our God. Hashem Echad. But by Mashiach, he's going to be the whole world's God. Hashem Echad. It'll be universal. Universal service, universal acceptance, universal belief, universal awareness, universal knowledge of God. Which is also very interesting when we say, like, the climax of our prayers, the final prayer is Aleinu, and after Aleinu we say the Alkei Nekava. What's the Alkei Nekava talking about? It's talking about Mashiach. Well, what are we talking about? This is the highlight. This is the final message we're saying in our prayers 3 times a day. What are we saying about Mashiach? The candies on the trees, the resurrection of the dead, the temple? No, we're talking about universal awareness and service of God. We're saying there will be a time when the whole world will know God. That's what we're focusing on. Dina?
It's interesting what you just said about there's no such thing as like a real atheist. And it's interesting being in the like academic setting where for the first time really in my life where I see like some of this and I just overheard 2 people talking about it and how like they just became an atheist, they couldn't understand. And it was fascinating to me because like underneath it all was just like refusal to accept the like pain and suffering of the world and the difficulties in the world. But like they were all for kindness and all these moral, godly attributes that didn't come out of nowhere. They're godly attributes that we mirror, but they just couldn't like wrap their head around pain and suffering. So like therefore they couldn't believe in something. And it was really interesting to me to hear that.
Were they talking in a setting that you were also participating, or it's just these two people were talking and you were eavesdropping?
So they were next to me and they said, "Oh, you're Jewish, right? Like our professor." And I said, "Yeah, I'm actually an Orthodox Jew." And they had been talking like before I sat down. So they said, "Oh, so you know about God?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm familiar." And they were just like, "Oh, okay, we're actually atheists." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like, you
That's
do
so
you."
cool.
Great. And they were saying they're like, "Oh, do you ever have difficult time in your relationship with God? Like if you believe in this." And they just basically had like these little comments. They weren't like pushy or anything. And I was really just more in a listening space because I didn't it wasn't the time to get too involved, but it was really interesting how they believe in morality and they believe in all these extremely godly and biblical attributes, but they just can't accept harm and suffering. So like that's where their limit ends. They just can't go into the God thing. And that's
So
like the
did
was
you
the
respond, Dina, or did you say stay quiet?
no, so I actually like did mention something. I don't think I handled it as well as I could have had I had a little bit of more had I been like more aware that this would happen. Had I given
Right.
like a 5 minute notice.
A little prep
Um
time.
yeah, and it was like right before class, before it was starting and I was presenting. So I'm like, oh, but I did push back and I said, like, oh, those sound like really godly attributes that you value. That's great. And I kind of just like implied, like, okay, like these come from somewhere else. These aren't yours. Like you didn't invent kindness and empathy. Um, and so I've made like a couple comments like that, like, oh, those seem like really godly attributes, and like, oh, that's really beautiful, or like, was there ever a time that you did believe in God, and what was life like for you then? And I just sort of had like a little bit of a dialogue, but yeah, nothing major.
Well, a lot of times when we're in those situations, I believe that our best option is to say, okay, God, please use my mouth rent free. Put your words, because I don't know what these people need to hear, but I trust that you can put the words they need to hear in my mouth. A
So
lot
I
of times,
actually did that, and I was like, Hashem, I was so caught off guard that I'm like, Hashem, like, please, like, make this. I totally did that, and especially because I was caught off guard, so there was like a total no control, no prep, and I think that like what I really got is like they wanted to be listened to, and that like I think it was more important for them to see that someone who believed in God and lived a life that was embedded with these like with this kind of practice, to see that it was like empathetic and like, okay, like I understand and accept, and like I'm kind back to you. I think like that's what they needed more than like they wanted to show me that like atheism was right and like prove it to themselves. And I think they just needed like to have an example of someone who was just like, oh, okay, these are some really beautiful godly attributes you have, you believe it. And that's, kind of like this, I don't know, like I think that's what they needed in that situation. But it was interesting.
I hear you. Yeah, because I think when you're in that space of like just being open and being nullified, so Hashem's light shines through you. And if what you felt then was this is what they need, then probably Hashem was tuning you into what they needed. And that's generally the best way to go in those situations. Hashem, I don't know what to say, but please just put the right words in my mouth. And yeah, it's cool that you had that experience, and you probably will have more being in
Well,
the
I'm excited
academia.
for a
You
time when
probably
that
will
world
encounter more, and you will have your maybe other thoughts will come in. But it's just it's really special. I think, what we're saying, like, so is the motivation looking at the pain and suffering in the world? You're talking pain and suffering, we're talking here with El and Miriam, the pain in the world. That's the motivation to bring Mashiach. It doesn't take away our belief. It's motivation to bring Mashiach. Or is looking at what Mashiach is about. Yeah, the essence definition of Mashiach is this permanent revelation of the essence of God and experiencing that. Experiencing freedom from all of our limitations, experiencing freedom from the limitations the world has been suffering throughout all known time. There's a lot of layers of why we want Mashiach now. And we're adding another one here, which is if all that doesn't always keep you focused, thinking about people that you love that are just waiting, and God who's just waiting, the Mashiach who's just waiting. That's also, the Rebbe says, add to your motivation to bring Mashiach now. That they could stop waiting, they could be down here. Why do they want to be down here so much? Because up there, all they can do is connect to the godly energy, enjoy the godly energy, receive the godly energy. It sounds very good, and it is, but they can't serve. To serve, you got to be here, soul and body, doing the commandments, studying the Torah, and giving to God. So if we think about it from that way, we also can appreciate what we have, because we do have that ability. And we, at this moment, right now, this second, we're learning. Our minds are invested in Torah and God's will and wisdom. We can do something right now. We are doing something right now. No angel can do. No soul above can do. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov can't do it right now. They're studying Torah, but they're not soul and body studying Torah. So they don't have the oneness with God that we have. They're studying Torah and they understand it far better than we do. But we have a oneness with God, and they can't have that. So on one hand, we're saying we can have motivation for the souls to get them back. We need Mashiach now. But I think also the more we've studied and the more we understand and the more that these concepts are real, hopefully we've gained a real appreciation of the opportunities we have, the opportunities this world offers us, the opportunities every single day to grab another mitzvah, to grab another act of kindness, to grab another chesed for another Jew, to grab another ability to serve. And like, who knows how many days and minutes and seconds God allotted for us. But for whatever we have, we can grab and serve. And in the meanwhile, have a relationship with those that passed as well.
In Olam Haba, is there a concept of like being with your family unit? Like,
Yes.
is every soul together with their
Yes.
parents, grandparents, siblings?
Clearly there is. Clearly we see things recorded in the Talmud and in the Midrash and in the Zohar that definitely speak about that. Yes. They're not like just like lying there doing nothing and just waves of godly energy are like they're suntanning in and they're doing nothing. No, they're doing. They, as we would call it, have a life. The life meaning a life as a soul, the life meaning a life of connecting to God, the life meaning a life of learning Torah. But within that, yes, there's relationships and there's connections and there's people and we speak and it's recorded of what we would call going to gatherings, studying Torah together, connecting to other souls. I remember very clearly when I went to my aunt's Levaya. My aunt very suddenly passed away. I was very close to her, so I flew into New York and I went straight to the cemetery, to the Beis HaChaim, and where my father is buried. And I was there early because I didn't go to, the funeral home because I was so late. Well, they were even later, so I had plenty of time. But I went to my father, and I remember very clearly, like, communicating with my father at his gravesite. And it sounds strange, but I meant it so sincerely, telling him, please send regards to my grandparents. I never get to my grandparents. They're buried in Connecticut. But I knew he was going to see my grandparents because I understood. It was so clear to me that my father and my grandparents were going to greet my aunt as she ascended. So my father would be there. I mean, it's a brother-in-law. Her parents would be there. It's her parents. So I was asking my father to send regards to my grandparents. So there's definitely those connections, and the connections definitely continue. Dina?
This might be a dumb question, but if a soul is reincarnated, when a soul is reincarnated and someone is saying tefillos for that soul, does that like go to a different place or goes to the soul that is back on earth?
No, it's not a dumb question at all. It's a very sophisticated question. So there's sort of two options depending on what that reincarnation means. Meaning, sometimes when a soul is reincarnated, the entirety of the soul is not reincarnated. There's a part that stays above and a part that comes down. And in that situation, which could be very common, the prayers are still going to the soul above, while a part of that soul came down and was reincarnated because that part still needed rectification, or that part was a part needed in this world, but the rest of the soul stayed above. If the totality of the soul was reincarnated, then those prayers would be helping that soul in this new life. Prayers are never wasted. Those prayers would still be helping, even though now that soul is not above, so to speak, but living a life.
So, do we each have a part of our soul that's just ours, no one else's? If you're saying a little part came,
We don't think of it that way. No. In other words, it's sort of like, I understand where you're thinking that, because I'm saying, well, if the bulk of the soul stayed above and a little part came
yeah,
down, you're like, wait, I don't have a little soul, so the rest of the soul must be just mine. I think the two metaphors I think of for a soul, one is classic, which is a flame, and one maybe I made up. I think of it as a splitting of DNA, so a more upgraded version. But in either case, it's the same concept. We'll take the flame, right? If you have a candle and then that candle lights another candle, the original flame is a total flame. And the second flame is a total flame because it's fire. It's not this quantifiable thing that I gave some and I lost some and I'm a little smaller and I'm a little bigger. It's a flame, it's a flame. So when a portion of the soul does not need to come back down, because that portion is completely refined and doesn't need to go through a lifetime, because that portion isn't needed in this lifetime, because that portion did the commandments that portion needed, you know what I'm saying, for various reasons based on many things we've discussed over these classes. So that portion is there. That portion isn't like a half a soul. That portion is a soul. And at the same time, the portion that comes down and is now inside me or you is a total soul with all actually a much more powerful soul than in its previous lifetime. Because even though it's only a portion of that soul, but it's a flame of flame, it's a total soul, and it has all of the muscles of every lifetime that that soul ever lived. Meaning every lifetime, we become more and more and more powerful. I'm sure I mentioned this at some point. I'm sure I brought this in, what we say in the Haggadah, so we just said it twice. Elazar ben Azariah said, Harani kiven shivim shana, right? Behold, I'm like 70 and nobody's listening to me. And why is he like 70? Well, he was really actually only 18. But when they asked him to become the head of the Sanhedrin, and his wife said, no way, no one's going to listen to you. You're a kid. That night, 18 rows of white came into his beard. And the next morning, they realized God was sending them a sign. And he became the head of the Sanhedrin. So what's he saying? I'm like 70 and no one's listening to me. Well, of course no one's listening to you. You're not really 70 just because you have 18 rows of white in your beard. I don't know if they were rows like this or streaks like this, but whatever. 18 rows of white in his beard. That's how it says. Why should anyone listen to you? You're 18. You're not 70. You just look old. You're still 18. So it's explained Kabbalistically that when he said he's like 70, he actually was 70. Because Elazar ben Azariah was a Gilgul of Shmuel Hanavi. Shmuel Hanavi passed away at 52. Elazar ben Azariah was 18. And 18 and 52 is 70. So he really was like 70. He really was 70. So when he's saying, why is no one listening to my opinion? I'm already like 70. He's saying, yeah, I'm a 70-year-old. I've lived and served God for 70 years. You should listen to me. Which Bob Trevor says teaches us an invaluable lesson on ourselves. Every time we come back down with all the strengths of our previous lifetime in our arsenal. So when Elazar ben Azariah is saying, Harei ani kiven shivim shana, he had those powers. He had 70 years of serving Hashem. When we look at ourselves, even though we could be a part of the soul that was because the other part didn't need to come back down, we're a complete soul and we're a very, very strong soul. Every one of us, every Jew alive today is a very strong soul and a very old soul. We know
there's no new soul.
You know, in the time the Alter Rebbe was born about 250 years ago. And when he was born, the Baal Shem Tov, who was, alive then, and I would assume the leader of world Jewry then, the Baal Shem Tov was very, very excited. He was very happy that day that the Alter Rebbe was born. And his followers asked him, what was he so excited? And he said, because a new soul has entered this world. Meaning, 250 years ago, when the Alter Rebbe was born, Shneur Zalman of Liadi, and he was a new soul, that was unusual 250 years ago. So no, we don't assume anyone here is a new soul. And we know generationally we're not new souls. So we've all definitely been here many times because we're the generation of the Tower of Babel. We're the generation that went through Egypt and got out. We're the generation of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. And personally, we've all been here many, many times, which means we're all very old souls. We're all very strong souls. We're all very muscled in our service of God. And we need to be because it's the end of the road. So the darkness is putting up its last fight, There's a lot of illusion of strength in the darkness. There's a lot of intensity in our challenges. And, but we're very powerful. We're all very, very, very powerful souls. And that's why all those previous lifetimes are tremendous advantage we have. It's something to our tremendous, tremendous strength that we've all been here so many, so many, so many times. So you might not feel very strong, but that's illusionary. We're all very, 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 very